striving. Hope comes and stops us in our tracks. Bravely we prove in our striving, trudging together each day. Where there's a will, there's a way.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Raw Recovery, a Trudging Together podcast. My name is Dion. I'm going to be your host, and I am back. Dion's back again. Tell a friend. Guess who's back? Guess who's back? Guess who's back? I have Stef on the show today. I've known Stef for, Stef, has it been a couple of years now, hasn't it? How long have you been going to 3 p.m.?
At least a year and a half.
At least a year. And we've really gotten to know each other. And we've tried to do this a couple of times. We've had some hits, misses, moving, illnesses. So what's great about AA is it happens in God's time. And when things happen in God's time, perfection ensues. That's what's great about God. So I've known Stef for a little bit. We go to the same home group. And wow, what a fantastic group. I love that group. We do amazing things there. We help a lot of newcomers. Don't we?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I call it the Wild West meeting.
It is, because we can have anywhere from 25 to 70 people there. Mm-hmm. It is huge. So I digress. That's not what we're here for. 3 p.m. Hit the 3 p.m. So I've gotten glimpses of Stef's story, and I'm very excited for this interview because Stef and I get along really well. We have the same kind of mindset. So I'm real interested to see how this is going to turn out. This is the portion of the show where Dion turns over the show. As everybody knows, we do things a little differently here. This is not the Dion podcast. It is about whoever is speaking for that day. So, Stef, the show is yours. Welcome to your podcast.
Well, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. It's a culmination of a lifetime, and I turned 60 this year in October, so it's a good time to look at this stuff.
Yeah. I
Definitely.
found I'm 53 now, and I just want to give everything away. Mm-hmm. That's how I feel nowadays. It's just all the wisdom that I have, I just want to give it away and hope that people don't go through the last years of hell that we went through. Huh?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I kind of feel like it's interesting. I've been having these glimpses lately that we are superheroes.
Yeah.
And we truly do have a superpower. And I think about the man in the bed.
Yeah. And
I think of that painting or picture sketching of Bob and Bill leaning forward and the man in the bed. And it's so interesting to me how much power there is between one alcoholic helping another, or alcoholics working with each other. Yes. That identification that I longed for, that I couldn't find in the bottle, and that I couldn't find in those dark bar rooms. And that super power that we have, the treatment centers don't have it. The treatment centers send the alcoholics to us, to AA.
That's right.
Because it's a spiritual solution, and it's a spiritual program. And I can, that all that self-knowledge availed me nothing. And I can learn all about my triggers and, all these things. But at the end of the day,
Yeah.
that's not what keeps me sober. That's not what made me drink. It's definitely the spiritual solution.
I agree, because I find that there's more success in treatment centers that are 12-step based. We've got a couple in Colorado, and they do real well. Their success rate is very high. And you can tell because they have a good alumni group.
Yeah. It's interesting. I don't know how that fits in with the traditions, but I do have to say that when I went to treatment with my second DUI, I did IOP, and it was a 2-year deal.
Yep.
Because I got my second DUI when I was under probation from my first.
Oh.
And because I was on probation when I got slapped really, really hard.
Yep.
And I had the blow and go for over 5 years in my car.
Wow.
And 2 years of, and I did have the accountability was there because I had to go and pee once a week and random.
Yeah.
But I was there, I don't know, 4 or 5 nights a week for 4 or 5 hours. And it was a big deal. But I just remember, because I was newly sober, I got sober in my bedroom by myself after I got out of the jail. And, I went through the DTs and one of the things I was, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks. No. By the time I got into the treatment, I had been in AA for about a month, but it took me about 2 weeks before I stumbled into an AA meeting, and I knew that I was going to be court ordered to go.
Absolutely.
But I went first to be sober and to get help. Yeah. And then, I got ordered to treatment like 6 weeks later. But what was interesting to me about treatment, and this is a controversial thing in our program.
It is.
But I believe that there were only about 3 of us out of like 35, 40 people that were alcoholic. The rest of them were mostly opiate addicts. Yeah. And they were there for drug court. And it was interesting because I would go outside and smoke with them.
Okay.
And it was different.
Yeah.
There was a different feeling with them than there was with the alcoholic.
Yeah.
And we are all fruit, but it's apples and oranges.
And I hear what you're saying. I want to qualify something just real quick and let the audience know that Stef has decided that what we're going to do today is talk about things we don't usually talk about in AA and things. So we're going to hear some of her story, but it's going to be tied in with topics here. So I just kind of let people know, because they're probably like, well, where were you born? Yeah. So that's what, and so we're going to do that today. So I hear what you're saying, because it's like, okay, so if we have a 12-step based treatment center, are we going against the traditions? Now, the other thing is alcoholism is different than drug addiction. Not anybody can be an alcoholic. And when we say special, that's what we're talking about. But anybody can be a drug addict. Anybody. I can be a drug addict. My wife can be a drug addict. She's a goody two-shoes. So that's what we're talking about here. Am I right on that? Where that's why it feels different, because we talk a different language.
Yeah. And for me, it goes deeper than that.
Okay.
I believe there's behavioral characteristics as well.
Agreed.
And I believe that's why when I came into AA and they said to me, welcome home, I felt there was the sameness there that I don't feel in the with the drug the opiate addicts. And I know that they have the same solution as we do.
Sure.
But I also do believe that there is something very strong about the identification of,
I agree.
the alcoholic. And I think it really helped me that my sponsor was an alcoholic.
Yes.
And it just, and maybe, that will change in my viewpoint right now, because it is a hot topic and a contentious one. And I think that yeah, there's more to be said about that.
Sure.
I will go in a little bit just to say a little bit about my story. About I grew up in an alcoholic home,
Okay.
and I got married at a young age. I got married when I was 19.
Okay.
And I married a man who, we weren't drinking, but he became alcoholic.
Okay.
And I was married for 21 years to an alcoholic. They call us double winners, or
Yeah.
something
Double
like that.
dippers, triple
I
winner.
think I'm a triple winner.
Yeah. You and I are triple and quadruple winners.
Yeah. And so I have been around this disease my whole life.
Yeah.
And I did everything I could not to drink. And the times that I did drink in my youth was not a normal drinking. It resulted in a blackout, or it resulted in not a normal situation. I remember when I turned 21, I went out to drink because I was turning 21.
Sure, right.
And that was a weird thing for me, because I drank all night and never got a buzz.
Not surprising.
And there's been weird things in our bodies. It's just and it just was weird, and so I had weird experiences with alcohol, and but I stayed away from it because I hated it so much.
Okay.
Because of what it did to my parents.
Your parents, yeah.
And also I saw it take my husband, and it caused a divorce, 21 years of marriage. And that's, we divorced.
Yeah.
2 children. The youngest was 3 when we divorced.
Okay.
And it wasn't until I started going out with girlfriends, and in my early 40s, newly divorced, started going out and hearing live music, had some friends that were musicians, kind of followed the band.
Yeah.
I was starting to drink more, because just going out more, people would be ordering me drinks.
Yeah.
When I first started going out, it was 1 or 2 drinks. And within probably 6 or 8 months, I was drinking really fast. And people were noticing that friends of mine would come up and say, "You're drinking too fast." And I would just argue, "No, I'm not. I didn't even see it. I didn't notice it." And so for me, I believe I had those alcoholic tendencies, or I was an alcoholic already and just hadn't drinking yet.
Yeah. Well, a really good indicator, and that was me too. The first time I drank, my friends had like a beer. I had like 4, and they were worse off than me. So when I started drinking, I always had a high tolerance for alcohol, and that's the first sign of alcoholism. That you have a high, it's already built in.
Yeah.
And that's why I feel like we're born with this. I feel like I was born with this disease.
I believe also that there's a sugar component with me. And I was a kid, and people don't talk about this in the rooms either very much.
Yeah.
But when I was a kid, I had a candy problem.
Yep.
Like a serious candy problem. And I remember, gosh, I would probably 5th grade or something. I was hiding candy in my dresser drawers, hoarding it.
Yeah.
Hoarding it.
Did you feel like you weren't getting enough or something? Was there not enough food on the table, or?
No, I don't know. It was an addiction already.
Okay.
It was addictive quality. But it's interesting, because when I started drinking in my 40s, the sugar, it helped my sugar craving. It gave me the sugar that I needed.
Yeah.
And it was almost like I was craving that sugar my whole life, that alcohol, and I was getting it with candy. Yep. It's a weird thing. It has been linked.
No, I understand. I get it, because it's the same for me. And I wonder how much sugar has to do
That's
with
why we eat
all of
sugar
it.
when we get sober. Yeah.
Oh yeah, because
Absolutely.
alcohol is 80% sugar.
Yeah. And
So
it is it's like the body, my body was craving the alcohol as a
yeah,
young kid, and it was getting the sugar, and that was all I could get at that time.
sure. Well, it gave you that high, that instant high you kind of wanted to with the
I
sugar.
think it goes into the brain chemistry in a similar way, maybe.
Good point. Yeah, where it hits that dopamine.
Oops, crap. I'm used to
Good
being at
coffee,
the
ladies
meetings
and gentlemen.
reheating my coffee. I'm being loud. Sorry.
No
Okay.
worries.
Yeah, I have. So what happened to me is 2 years ago, I had a weird thing happen to me. I had a brain injury.
Okay.
It's not really a stroke, but it's like a blood clot happened in my brain stem.
Okay.
And I ended up with, for about 6 months, I had some seizures and some weird stuff.
Oh man.
And it affected my cognitive ability.
Okay.
And so I have ADD really bad now.
Ooh. Okay.
And so I bounce around from topic to topic. I have a hard time carrying my train of thought, those kinds of things. And it is, a brain injury. And I don't know, I think it's gotten a little bit better, but I think it's leveled off. I think
You've
I'm
been
at the
doing
stage of
great here. No, you've stayed right on topic and everything here. You're doing great.
Well, I'm at the stage of acceptance with it. And that's what I wanted to talk about today,
Okay.
was acceptance.
Let's do that.
And for me, what I've come to realize, oh, by the way, see, I'm bouncing around. I got sober from my second DUI, and my sobriety date is December 3rd, 2016.
Yay.
And I have been sober for over 7 years now.
Yep. Coming up on 8.
Yep. And for me, acceptance is surrender.
Yep. It absolutely is.
And my whole problem that I've noticed, most of my character defects and all the stuff that I've been, looking at with working the steps, come down to acceptance.
Mm-hmm.
And not trying to, control things. And
Yeah.
that's the first step being acceptance.
Yeah.
Accepting that I am an alcoholic, and accepting that I cannot drink like other people, and that I am physically and mentally different than others. And that is the biggest. I just keep going back to step one. I feel like it seems to be the answer
Well, it
to
does.
a lot of my struggles.
It is. Well, when you get into the program and you accept the fact that you're an alcoholic, or you become aware, these all mean the same thing. You are absolutely correct on that. Then our higher power gives us that perfect release from alcohol. Sure, I have willpower over a lot of my other problems, but why at this point?
Mm-hmm.
But why? Why not just go ahead and give it all to God then?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's an attitude, and of course it precedes action.
Yes,
and
it does.
and it always, action always has to follow it.
Yeah.
Or it's very short-lived.
Yes, that's what they say. Yeah.
I cannot stay sober without doing things. And it's the action, part of the program that keeps me sober.
Mm-hmm.
Working the steps on a daily basis. And I love what I've heard you share in meetings. You really do get this deep down in your bones. And it is
Thank
apparent
you.
every time you share, when you talk about, the wax on, wax off, wax on, wax off. I love that. And it really helps me. And another thing that I have in my mind that helps me is hand on the plow.
Yep.
Is that I just keep my hand on the plow.
Yep.
And that is, there's work involved with that.
Yeah.
But I don't know what to do until I hear, until my higher power speaks through you guys a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But wax on, wax off, hand on the plow. And what that is for me is steps 1, 2, and 3.
Yep.
I can't, God can. I think I'll let him.
Yeah.
And so throughout my day, it's that attitude that I have to, and that's that acceptance, that surrender. That's the surrendering process to me. And it just goes on for the rest of our lives.
Yeah.
It's just because I'm constantly, like what people say, of taking my will back, or I'm constantly trying to control the situation. And it's difficult because I realize that this controlling nature has to do with the way we're wired, the way I'm wired, and the way that I grew up in a very out of control home.
Mm-hmm.
And I lived in a very out of control home. And so for me, being the oldest child of 2 alcoholics who are still drinking, by the way, it's part of who we are. So
Absolutely.
that, and I think there's a lot of us. There's a lot of us that have experienced trauma. There's a lot of it in the. I was saying the other day about going to a women's retreat, and then that's when really people's guard came down, and we were around the fire in our pajamas, and women were talking about things, and there is a lot of trauma in Anonymous. People come in the doors, we don't become alcoholic and drug addicts overnight because we're happy people.
That's right. Well, and a lot of us, not every single one of us, but a lot of us grew up in alcoholic homes.
Mm-hmm.
And my life has been, even growing up, I had a lazy eye. I was a bedwetter till I was 11. These things are traumatic, and they will go through us through the rest of our lives.
Mm-hmm.
And what's great about the steps is they will relieve a lot of it, not all of it. AA doesn't do trauma. We need outside help. And that's when the professionals work best for us.
Mm-hmm.
I'll give a bit of kudos to some professionals too. EMDR worked great for me.
Yeah, and I haven't had any of that. I have had unfortunate. When I had my mastectomy 12 years ago, I was sent to a counselor, and it was never it was just a family counselor, and all she did was talk about, take a bath and make sure you eat, and it was all about self-care. It was self-help kind of techniques. But it wasn't.
That isn't going to help you.
No. And so that kind of stuff is still, I believe, lurking in there, and it can be re-triggered in our life. Now, I had my PTSD from my childhood. I grew up in a violent home.
Okay.
I had it re-triggered when I was 25 years old. I was attacked in the face by a Rottweiler dog.
That'll do it.
My face, stitches, 6 toothprints in my face.
Oh man.
I've had, a lot of trauma to my body. I had 3 surgeries in a 18-month period.
Yeah.
A lot of that stuff can get buried.
Yeah.
And what was interesting recently was, and this is a shout out to all the women out there. I went through breast cancer twice, and the second time was a radical mastectomy 12 years ago.
God bless you.
And about 3 weeks ago, a good friend of mine who helped get me sober, who helped sponsor me, passed away of breast cancer. And it was strange because on a Wednesday, I get the phone call that she passed away.
Okay.
And then 2 days later, my daughter, who's 33 years old,
Yeah.
had to have a mammogram because they told her you need to have mammograms early because your mother's had breast cancer twice, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
So she went in at age 33 and had a mammogram, and then they found something in there and she had to have a biopsy. So 2 days later this happens.
Yeah.
And it was just a strange thing. And then a sponsee of mine had a issue. It was like a cluster. We call them
Yeah.
cluster.
Yeah. That's what we call
It
it.
was a clusterfuck. And it was almost like all these things like got put in my path, like boom, 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 boom.
Yeah.
And what
Yeah.
happened was it really spinned me out and it brought up some of that PTSD stuff.
Yeah.
And I realized, even 7 years into this program, that I haven't had any work on that stuff. And even though I've done a fourth and fifth step and
Yeah.
all those things, those kinds of things are like cellular, and
Yeah.
that's the kind of stuff that I don't really know that another human being could even, other than some small techniques or something. But I think that the healing, it's got to come from a higher power.
You know,
I think.
I think, because I'm big on sayings, and I think this is a GI Joe situation where knowing is half the battle.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to help out. Resentments and trauma are two different things, but people tend to confuse them. And you're not confusing them right now. I'm just bringing it up because I thought of it.
Yeah.
That sometimes we tend to confuse trauma with a resentment. And people were telling me, you have a resentment, you have a resentment. I'm like, this isn't a resentment. This
Right.
is voices coming into my head telling me what to do.
Mhm.
This is not a resentment. I can't help myself. I would want to tell my wife that I love her, but it would come out, fuck you,
Mm.
because everybody was the enemy.
Mhm.
And it's like an out of body experience.
Mhm.
It's horrible. It
Mhm.
really is.
Mhm.
But I tend to think, we put ourselves in some sordid places to not come out with any trauma,
Mhm.
you know,
Or some might say attachments.
attachments. Yeah.
Attachment.
Emotional sobriety, man. It's that's serious stuff. Emotional sobriety and our attachments and manipulation to other people, you bet.
Well, and I look at it as and here we go into another controversial subject. And this
I
is
love
good
these.
because I wanted to talk about this stuff. I've been
You,
wanting to
you
talk
know
about
what?
it with
I've
you.
hard topics are normal for me.
I
That's a
know that.
normal
And that's what I
conversation.
love about you because you're so approachable. You are
Oh,
just
thank
so
you.
approachable. And
Thank you.
the fact that we can be ourselves, and it's kind of crazy stuff. So, okay, so let me digress just a little bit because
Absolutely.
I'm going to open up a can of worms that you might want to hold on to your ass.
Okay.
Okay. So, I grew up in a haunted house.
Okay.
And not just did I experience things in that house, but my aunt and uncle grew up in that house and
Okay.
they experienced things also, which I found out later. And then the people that moved into the house after my parents moved out and all that, they've experienced things in that house. In
I
fact,
believe it.
I should turn it into the haunted registry. Definitely.
I listen to haunted stories when I go to bed at night.
See, I knew I was safe with you. So, what my experience is that I really am in agreement with Carl Jung and his letter and his letter to Bill W. And for a lot of people that don't know that Carl Jung is the doctor that's referred to in our big book.
Yep.
And he was the one that treated Roland Hazard when he came. And that's really the beginning stages of AA.
Yeah. Yeah. It
And
was
years
twofold,
later,
and a lot of people don't know
1961,
that. Thank
Bill
you.
W. wrote letters back and forth with Carl Jung.
Mm-hmm.
And Carl Jung, you know, he was a pretty smart guy.
Yep.
And he did talk about alcoholism as spiritus contra spiritum,
Yep.
which
Which is
is, you know,
Latin.
fighting spirit with spirit.
Yeah.
And that this is, when I was talking earlier about an attachment, this is what I'm referring to.
Yeah.
That I do believe in angels and demons.
Absolutely.
And I don't go to church.
Yeah. You don't need to go to
They
church.
haven't been able to protect me there, so I don't go there.
Yeah.
But I do believe in angels and demons, and I do believe that that King Alcohol is an attachment, is a form of a
It's a
demon,
demon.
and I do believe that
It's
because
it's
there's
a
power there.
they're called spirits for a reason.
Yeah, and I call them hungry ghosts.
Yeah.
Hungry ghosts, and
because
that's
when
why
you
when
have
I'm
enough
in an
of
elevator, I can feel when there's a hungry ghost in the elevator with us.
yes, yep, because it'll attach to me. I feel it. There's been times when I'll be talking to my therapist and I'm like, right now I feel spiritually attacked. There's nothing going on, but I feel spiritually attacked. And it's the devil. I know it is. Because I'm
Yeah,
doing well,
there
and
is
you don't want it.
definitely you know, Carl Jung did talk about that it is, you know, evil. And
Yeah,
you know, when we sometimes we go to AA meetings and people say the Lord's Prayer, and I've had people, you know, change the words, you know, to, you know, protect us from ego. And I'm like, no, don't say that.
no,
Say
evil.
evil. Because I do believe that there is evil.
I
I really do.
absolutely. How can there be good if there needs to be, what, and here's the thing is, and I talk about this a lot. It's just that I use different words besides the devil. I
Yeah.
use snakes and things like that
Mhm.
because you say devil and people
Yeah, it sounds
and they
religious.
run, but it's just
Yeah.
another freaking word to describe something.
Exactly.
Yes, this is spiritual warfare for your soul.
Mhm.
You
That's why
are
it's a spiritual
you are-
solution.
and exactly. So being superheroes, we're gonna get back to that now. Being superhero. Well, this is your show, but I do want to finish off with that. But so that comes back to why one alcoholic can help another alcoholic like no one else can. That is why. And now we're seeing that because we understand. We talk a language. We talk a language of the heart, which only you and I get.
There's a recognizing of it.
Yeah.
And it's our heart recognizes that other suffering alcoholic. We can feel that they have that attachment on their soul, like
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah. And when you're somebody who's been lonely most of their life and you say welcome home, that's what we're talking. That's probably as close to describing what we go through as we can. Now take that and times it by about 10 and you'll start to feel how we feel.
Right. And also in the same letter, when Carl Jung talks about spiritus contra spiritum, which is the Latin for, spirit fighting spirit, he also talks about the protective wall of human community.
Yep.
And that is what AA is, a protective wall of human community. And I tell sponsees that stay in the herd, stay in the middle of the herd.
Exactly what I say, in the middle of the herd. I still stay in the middle of the herd.
Yeah, King Alcohol is a predator and also grooming us.
Yeah.
Grooming us like a predator does.
Yeah.
And so for me, this sounds religious, but it's not.
But it's not.
This is
all spiritual.
It is spiritual. And I do believe that there are powers and principalities that we don't understand. and that I
Absolutely.
am on the winning side now,
Yep.
and that and it's interesting, if anybody doesn't understand, if you've never been in a blackout, you explain to a person that's non-alcoholic about being in a blackout and the things that we can do in a blackout.
Yeah.
Just amazes me.
Yeah.
And if that's not a possession of some kind, then what is?
Exactly. I mean, we're literally walking around. We're still walking around when we should be dead or asleep.
Mhm.
But because of the way, because we were born bodily and mentally different, normies will pass out before a blackout. You cannot have one, normies. It's physically impossible for you to do. That's what, and so I mean, just
Yeah,
the severity people
it's
don't understand, and it's
cunning and
hard.
baffling. But the thing is that the psychology and everything can only go so far, and
That's right.
our big book really talks about that psychic change and having that spiritual experience. It is everything. That
Mhm.
is my defense against the first drink.
Yeah, absolutely.
And people
And
talk about, that, oh, this isn't about alcohol. Yes, it is.
it's
Yes, it
when I
is.
when I wake
Because
up in the morning, I still have the choice to go drink. So yes, it's very much about alcohol.
it
I
is
have the
about alcohol, because this attachment that I have to my soul that
Yep,
won't go away,
which is a spirit.
it
Is
wants to drink through
Yeah,
me. It wants me to be a human straw for
yep.
it.
What
For
it
it.
what it wants is it wants to see the world burn. That's how I feel when I'm drinking. I just want to see the world burn, and I would sit there and laugh. That's how evil
Mhm.
somebody inside me is. And
Yeah,
I don't
and
want
all we
that.
can do is keep it at bay. I mean,
Yeah.
really. And
Well, that
and
comes
that's
back
that one
to
day at a time, staying on the beam,
yeah.
staying
Well,
spiritually fit, so
and
that this demon doesn't try to come back in and take over
absolutely.
again.
Yeah. And I think that comes back to acceptance again, awareness. I am aware of that in me.
Hmm.
I know how dangerous I am.
That's
Now
right.
that
And
I know that, I have to reel it back.
that's right. And I have to always never take my eye off the ball,
Nope.
and
Stay in
never
your lane.
knowing that it's a predator and it's grooming me.
Yeah.
And it's using my brain to say, oh, you can just do this, or you can, it just,
Mm.
yeah,
And just how
makes you forget.
nonchalant it is about it is
Mhm.
just scary.
Mhm.
Scary. Oh, you can have 10 more drinks and get in a car. Don't worry about it. Wow. It's like I say, if we blacked out and went and helped in soup kitchens, we wouldn't be having a problem. But that's not what happens.
Mm-mm.
That's not what happens. Evil ensues every time.
Mhm.
Every time.
So yeah, so I wanted to talk about it a little bit, because it was
Thank
something
you.
that people get awkward about, and it all of a sudden it brings up religious connotations, and I actually became a Catholic while I was drinking,
Sure.
because I knew there was something evil going on with me. And I actually took classes. Of course, I was drinking the whole time. I became Catholic. I tried everything, and I could not get sober.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I came into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. But
But
uh, but
but
I
what's
I did feel like
cool,
at least they believed in the demons, the Catholics.
yeah. Well, and the thing is to deny is even worse, right? To deny that it's going on. Um, but I was even talking to my pastor about this. And I was telling her, people in AA will just not, they won't go for the damnation. And she said, I don't preach that. My higher power, and that's what she said. My higher power doesn't make qualifications like that. And I'm like, so she is not religious. She is spiritual.
Mm-hmm.
She might as well be in AA
Mm-hmm.
with the way that she talks and the way she presents herself, you know. Um, I'd really like to talk about the suit. So now that we've talked about all this, let's talk about what happens when we do work together and we're superheroes. Because I believe that we are chosen.
Mhm.
And I think it is hard sometimes for people to accept that they are chosen, so they choose not to do it.
Mhm.
And because it's hard to do. This is
It comes with
it's not easy.
responsibility.
I'm
It
sorry?
does. It comes with the responsibility,
Yeah,
and it is yeah, but you know, we stand on the shoulders of giants, you know.
absolutely.
And this, you know, they talk about Bill Wilson being the greatest architect of the 20th century, of social movement architectural genius.
Sure.
And you know, they talk about the internet, and when you think about what happened in the 20th century, AA came along. And we do stand on the shoulders of giants here. We really
Absolutely, we
do.
do.
And
He was chosen for a reason.
Mhm.
That's, and I'm not trying to get into we should change the big book talk, but it's just an example of, when they said we need to change the verbiage in the big book, I'm like, well, how are we going to do that? Because God chose Bill and then he chose the 100 to work with it. And that's the whole, that's the miracle of the book is that 100 people wrote that. So how are we as human beings going to choose that? That it's beyond us.
Yeah.
And it's written in.
It's
So
a sacred text. I consider
yeah,
it a sacred text. So
yeah,
there's a lot of sacred texts. They shouldn't change any sacred text.
yeah, absolutely.
I agree.
Um, AA has infiltrated. I mean, it is the largest organization in the world.
Right. And
Period.
but I don't want to see it diluted down too much. And
Nope.
that's what I believe our primary purpose needs to be stated. And that you know that our primary purpose is to help the still suffering alcoholic.
Yeah,
And you know, everybody is welcome, but it dilutes the message when people are in the rooms and they don't have a problem with alcohol.
yeah, I agree. I mean, I want to be helpful to
It's not a
everybody,
self-help program.
but exactly, it's a help yourself program. Oh, that's what I was going to say earlier. Once we do get well, though, that knowledge that we've accumulated before can come in handy now. But until you know how to help yourself, self-help books aren't any good. So
No, because we get better by helping others.
and that's it. And that's why, it says in working with others that nothing so much ensures immunity from drinking as intensive work with other alcoholics. It works when other activities fail. So I'm in self-pity. And what I hear people saying in the rooms is write a gratitude list. I'm like, no, go help another alcoholic, because then you'll get gratitude out of it.
Mm-hmm.
That's
And that's like, you know, the saints, you know, Mother Teresa and the people, and you know, it is about helping others, and that's the way out.
exactly. Yeah.
That's the way out. But we don't want to help others until we have a psychic change.
Yeah. Well, I have found, or at least this is what I've seen, is that when an alcoholic comes into AA, especially when they're forced, and then they find out that their drinking is affecting their family, because that's the biggest denial in AA or in alcoholics is that we're not hurting other people.
Mm.
And once they figure that out, they want to change.
Mm-hmm.
But it's that denial portion that blocks us from seeing that. And I think that's where the spirits come in and they say,
Mm-hmm.
oh, you don't need to see, you're not hurting anybody. You're drinking by yourself in the bedroom, and you haven't showered in a week. Nobody want, and it seems normal.
Mm-hmm.
It seems normal.
Yeah, no, it's something that definitely crossed the line at some point, and they talk about us being cucumbers and becoming pickled, and once you're pickled you can never be a cucumber again. And that is the truth, that once you're alcoholic, you can never drink like a regular person can.
Yeah.
And that's true. But it goes beyond that, because we are
Way
not
beyond.
just horses. We are like those unicorns. We are special creatures.
We are.
That's the superpower, the
Yeah.
superhero.
Yep. But being a superhero, it comes with sacrifice. That's the word I'm looking for. I don't want to say it comes with, doing that, but sacrifice, I think, is the right word. I sacrifice mostly my time.
Yeah.
When my time, and I find my time to be pretty valuable because I have this skill, and that skill is saving other people's lives. I can change whole lives.
Mm-hmm.
So when it comes to that serenity prayer, the courage to change the things that I can, that changes for me. Mm-hmm. I can go out there and change the community. Where 5 years ago or 8 years ago when I started the program, I couldn't have done that. But now I can, because I'm a working member of society again, and my voice matters. And because I'm in God's will, I can go make those changes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That ripple effect is so amazing. Those seeds that we're planting. Yes. I always tell people, and a lot of them come in the doors like me, in and out in the beginning, when it's like the turkey that's got the popper inside in the oven. Yeah. It's not fully popped up yet.
Yeah.
It's just kind of slightly popping. So we see people coming in the doors, and their turkey popper is about half popped up.
Yeah.
And sometimes, it does take it, pain being the touchstone of change. And it does take that jumping off place. It does take, that bottom where you really realize that, hey, I am trapped in this situation. Yeah. There is no other way out.
No.
Cornered. And that's how I felt, cornered.
Yeah.
Absolutely cornered.
Yeah, it's like, and when I got to AA, they didn't want anything from me. And that was really weird, because it just seemed like every time somebody wanted to quote unquote help me, they wanted something, even if it was my insurance card. When money was dealt with, or there's expectations, of course my mom wanted me to get sober, but she had her own intentions, and I knew that. So it did not work. It wasn't until somebody came along that wanted nothing from me that I heard what they were saying. Mm-hmm. That's when I heard the true nature of my malady.
And and that's why I always say this, and it's so powerful, that we don't preach, we don't teach, we only share.
Yeah.
And that's what we do in AA. And we don't we're stubborn alcoholics. We're not going to listen to people. We're smarter than that. We know that nobody has all the answers.
Yeah.
So it's hard for us to sit in a church and be told what to do.
Yeah.
But we can learn by people using I statements and talking about their own experience, strength, and hope.
Yeah.
And when you guys talk about your experience, strength, and hope, I might, higher power you are the angels.
Yeah.
That are put in my path.
And it can't be argued with.
Definitely it can't be, because it's your own experience, my own experience. And, I think that they talk about, back, in history, and it's, they sat around the campfires and they told the stories, it was just the stories about, what it was like, what happened, what it's like now. And, there's also something that I'm interested in and there's a word for it, and it's actually, there's some concrete evidence behind epigenetics.
Okay.
And epigenetics talks about that we carry these things from our ancestors.
Oh, yeah.
In fact, they showed it. They did a test. They did a rat, and they did a startle thing on this rat. Like every time the rat, smelled vanilla, the strong scent of vanilla, they would shock it.
Okay.
Shock it. And they did this for like 2 years. Well, when this rat, they took the rat's sperm and they impregnated another rat in another cage, had the babies, and those babies had the startle effect with the vanilla.
Huh.
a certain
Yeah.
scent, it would create a startle effect. So that's called epigenetics.
Wow.
And there are
That's
things
interesting.
passed down in our genetics.
Yeah. Well, just like elephants. When an elephant has a baby, the baby already knows where the watering hole is.
There you go.
And it's the same kind of thing. Well,
Mhm.
alcoholism and diseases can be passed down,
Mhm.
even
Mhm.
even psychological ones.
Mhm.
Because I don't know how it all works, but I do know that it happens.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
and there you have
and
a
it's something that
nature, and it isn't a nature versus nurture, it's a nature and nurture. It's
right.
a culmination of both. So
Right. And a perfect example of that would be me, because I was able to stay away from king alcohol for
yeah,
most of my life. I used to pour out my parents' vodka and put water in it. And boy, did I get in trouble for that.
sure did.
And I was married for 21 years to an alcoholic, strong, heavy drinker. And I did everything I could to stay away from king alcohol. And
Hmm.
then in my 40s, it finally got me.
Yeah,
But I believe that I had the tendencies my whole life with the sugar,
yeah.
with all that,
My
and
attitude.
just the feeling different as a child,
That's it.
that feeling different, knowing that you're not comfortable in your own skin. It's kind of it's something that I believe, yeah, I think you're right. We probably are born with it. And then like you said, the nurturing or lack of,
Yeah,
just it creates a weak spot in our armor, and king
yeah,
alcohol can get in.
yeah. And they'll
And
find
that's
that.
why I have to keep that wall of protective human
Yep,
community.
yep.
I
Standing in the
love that.
sunlight of the spirit.
Mhm.
Fellowship, and fellowship includes the people in my fellowship and God.
Mhm.
That includes those things.
Mhm.
And that is my fellowship.
Yeah.
Um, as an alcoholic, I need to be reminded of this daily. And that's why it's important that, at least for me, I go to a meeting every day. I don't care how I'm feeling. Even when I was sick a few weeks ago, I just turned the camera off. I
Mhm.
put Dion just listening.
Mhm.
Fine. But I got to at least make it to the meeting and be accountable. I think accountability was probably the best thing for me when I first got sober.
Yeah,
Um,
I think it really helped me too.
and
It
now I'm
did.
just accountable. And now that I'm accountable, it goes towards like what Dr. Bob said. It says this, that, you can set yourself up to succeed too. How do we do that? We'll work with other alcoholics, and that'll help you, help you with a defense against the first drink.
Mhm.
You have any parting words of wisdom for us, Steph?
Well, I was just thinking about how life kind of does these clusters. This, I call it cluster fucks.
Yeah,
And
comes
like
in
with all that
three.
stuff that happened to me 3 weeks ago, it was just like boom, boom, boom. A lot of things were being put in my path, like in a really quick succession.
Yeah,
And I mean, people go through things. I mean, people can, go for years without losing people. And then you can have 5 deaths in 1 year. It
yeah,
can just happen in clumps. It just clumps.
yeah,
And it just seems like these are teaching moments.
yeah,
Like, what am I, and for me, it has been that a lot of that stuff, that even though I have 7 years in sobriety, a lot of that stuff, that trauma from, let's say, my mastectomy and different things that I buried deep down inside me,
mm-hmm,
are starting to bubble up as I'm, healing and
yeah,
working my program. These things are bubbling up and starting to come up to the surface. And I think that it is a way of healing.
absolutely it is.
I definitely do. I'm glad that it didn't all hit me when I got sober. I think there's a reason why more is revealed,
That's
because
right.
it would be too much for me to handle when I first
Yeah,
got sober. All the
absolutely. It would have
stuff.
been too much. And that's why things are done in God's time.
Hmm. And
That's
so
why.
I had all those clumping things happen, and it was about fear. and it was
Sure.
about fear and just kind of like being able to look at this stuff and it kind of bubbling back up and this stuff is really not fourth and fifth step stuff. This stuff is sixth and seventh stuff. I can't even say it. Step stuff for
Yeah.
me. And the
Mhm.
sixth step is for me is another third step because it is about the surrendering and leaning into the care
Yeah.
of God, the
Yeah.
care and the understanding.
Yeah.
And that's where, and I believe that that's where my program is right now, that the healing is starting to happen from some of these past traumas in
Yep.
my life, because I've spent the last 7 years, backing away from hell one day at a time. But now I'm starting to lean in to the care and
Mhm.
understanding of my higher power.
And that is the difference between, because they say that pain is the touchstone of healing, but when we do it intentionally,
Mhm.
it becomes something better and more beautiful. You don't have to be in pain to change, to decide, to make the decision to change. So when we decide
So
that
much of it is
character building
acceptance.
is more important, we win.
Yeah. Sorry, I interrupted you. So much of it is acceptance for me.
It is.
It's just so much of it is just acceptance, not resisting everything. And
Yeah.
and so many of those like trauma memories that got triggered and things like that I thought I had buried down, a lot of them are about acceptance and just
Yeah.
accepting, and that's that surrender.
Yeah. Stop fighting.
Yeah.
That's what I
And
did.
it's hard not to
That's
fight
what,
because you're
yeah,
being hurt,
it is. Exactly. Especially in the beginning and everybody's telling you you're wrong all the time. You're wrong. You're wrong. I know. Just fuck off. You know? I know I'm wrong. Leave me alone.
Yeah, but we're trudging this. We're doing this stuff. Life
That's
gets
why it's a
lifey, and
yeah. That's why it's a
I'll tell you what. When I got sober, I had a lot of problems. I had a lot of stuff to clean up with the law, and with
yeah.
all my DUIs, and a lot of amends to make to my family and my children, and society and that. But now I'm starting to really get deep down into the care
Yeah.
and understanding of the higher
Yeah.
power.
Now what you did is you got to a place where you can actually work on these things. Now it's God is doing for me what I couldn't do.
Mm-hmm.
I suddenly can handle situations that used to baffle me.
Mm-hmm.
And problems are now a little bit exciting because it's
Mm-hmm.
a opportunity for me to use my AA techniques again.
Mm-hmm.
And when we do that, we will thrive.
Lots of tools in this program. Yeah.
Lots of tools.
Lots of tools.
All right.
Yeah.
Woo. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Steph, thanks for taking your time on a Monday afternoon and spending some time with us. I appreciate it. And it's always, I love getting to know people. And wow, what a great conversation this was.
Well, thanks for talking about angels and demons and all kinds of crazy stuff.
That's, everybody has their own experience, and I'm certainly not closed-minded. Your experience is your experience, and that makes it fact. And I can't argue with that. I do believe in a lot of these things. How do we bring up the devil in AA? Because we talk about God. So I've always wondered that myself too, but it just makes it feel too religion-y. And
yeah, it seems to be a big no-no. Like that's supposed to just be like our ego or something. And I'm like, well, I don't know.
I can't, and denial is not a river in Africa. So
yeah.
Thank you, everybody, for being here. As to my audience, man, we had a lot of great discussions today, and I'm sure we're going to hear some great comments about this. Thank you, everybody, for being here. I love you. You know I do.
Thank you.
Peace out, and have a day. Bye-bye.